Not very long ago, if you'd said to me, I'm looking for a cheap two-seater sports car on a budget that's going to make my life brilliant, the instinct would have obviously been to take you to a Mazda MX-5. It's what I did when I was on a budget. I just wanted a car that was going to make my life better and not complicate things. And I think, to be honest, I would have been perhaps a bit stuck in that view until not long ago and really just tried to coerce most people into the head choice. And then recently I drove a 996 911, and it took me from being a Porsche agnostic to finally getting why everyone's crazy for Porsches. And the other thing kind of became apparent to me, that people buying these cars on a budget are often coming from a retirement age. They're coming from a place where they might only want to spend £5 buying the car, but they've got a bit more in their pocket to actually run it. So this is a really exciting car to review and to find out what it's all about. It's the cheapest way into the Porsche brand. It's a pure little sports car, but there's quirks, there's pluses, there's minuses. So let's find out if this is effectively what the MX-5 should have always been, or if it's the cheapest Porsche for a reason. So I think the first thing we should talk about is the interior, what it's like to actually sit in a car from the mid to late 90s and early noughties. So being quick here, I'm not going to do a history lesson on Porsche, but this was during their kind of bean counting era when they were saving the company, and they had to cut a few costs. With that being said, by itself, is this a low quality interior? Absolutely not. This is a nice place to be. It's still a Porsche after all. It's not a Honda covered in leather trying to be luxurious. This is from someone that had a leather interior Honda, so no hate there. The main big point here is the practicality. I won't be the first to have told you that, but it's so much more spacious than my Mark III MX-5. There's a lot more room for adjustment. The passenger doesn't have their feet against the firewall of the engine. And obviously we've got the practicality of the enormous front and back boot. I'm still genuinely, it's so surprising. You know, I've reviewed a couple of Z4s, check those out on the channel. I've reviewed Audi TT, MX-5. So I'm used to seeing what these cars can offer, and it's really surprising. We have to interrupt the interior segment for some fun, I'm afraid. And some hazard perception tests as well. Me being the hazard for driving like a dick, to be honest. The other key feature of the interior, no roof. We are enjoying the one day a year of British sun. And I think this car is ultimately about feeling, and it doesn't really matter how long the interior spec list is. You've got heated seats for winter if you're lucky. You've got cruise control for long road trips if you're lucky. Air conditioning for those hot days. You've got all you really need, let's be honest. But overall, a car of this era that I'm loving already, those big chubby tyres, the smaller alloys, suspension that's not trying to shake the fillings out of your head. It's a comfy, chilled out place to be. And this is a car that I could already see myself planning a holiday and a road trip all around Europe and enjoying every hour of it. I will say that the 987 Boxster S that I drove, to me, had far nicer interior. And if I had the budget to squeeze into one of those, it's what I would do. But ultimately, it's still a great place to be, and you can get into a pretty well sorted one of these for probably £3 less than a well sorted 987. So, yeah, it's worth considering. What's this car like to drive then? Let's get on with that. You are hearing a 2.5 litre flat six. I don't think anybody would otherwise say a 2.5 litre flat six should sound that good. This has got a custom exhaust on it, which is making a world of difference. But at 6.5 seconds to 60, it's fast enough. It's fun. And I think I would have had a little bit of doubt, to be honest, prior to driving one, that the 2.5 litre would be worth considering. But it really is. It just feels like It's got that little bit extra power in every gear that the MX-5 doesn't have. And yet you don't feel like you're crying out for more power. I suspect, honestly, the sweet spot for me would be that 2.7 litre in the facelift. I think that would be just perfect. If you could get into a good 3.2 for your money, why not? You know, they're great, they're a little bit more theatrical, but part of the joy of this car is actually being able to thrash it at closer to legal speeds, hearing it rev out and scream out, and you don't already have to come off the accelerator and try and find your ethics again. One interesting thing I actually noted, because I drove this car a month ago and started reviewing it then, but I've come back to do another take, long story. But one of the things I thought about later was the MX-5, for example, coming from that, the way that car reacts to the road, there's quite exaggerated movement in it. There's basically no sound deadening. And there's something about that car that makes you feel like you're going quicker than you are. I'd often be flat out in second gear and people would say to me, all right, mate, easy. And I'd say, we're doing 61 miles an hour. And they're like, what? They just could not believe it. This car feels more set and it feels, I think there's a bit less of that drama coming in. So despite being quicker, I don't think it feels a million times quicker than that MX-5, bizarrely, but it certainly feels quick enough. The steering, gotta love old hydraulic steering. It's absolutely lovely. You know, it's not as telepathic as DeLorean steering, of all things, that I did recently. More on that later. And the old unassisted 911 steering. But compared to what we're used to today and jumping into a more modern car, it's just so lovely. Really, really nice weighting. You can feel what's going on the road, but it's not like an over-the-top sensation. And bearing in mind, I'm driving a car which has had extensive suspension work done, but it could do with new shocks. There's one corner of the car which needs a tiny bit of attention, and then ultimately it needs an alignment after that. So I'm not going to say the definitive word on its handling. But overall, compared to its competitors, it's chalk and cheese to how an Audi TT drives. That's honestly some of the most dead steering I can remember driving. That's the 8J, by the way. Some of the most dead steering I can remember of any car. It's, I'm afraid, not even close to the MX-5s. That really is something else. That is some of the best steering I've experienced. If not, I'd say the best steering of anything south of a Lotus or a Caterham. It really is that good. That's after a good alignment, mind you. So if you've driven a Mark III and you're wondering why you don't remember it being as great, trust me, the alignment makes a world of difference. The brakes were a really positive surprise to me. They're just immediate. They do feel instinctive and confidence inspiring, and there's no kind of dead spot in the pedal for me. As soon as you start pressing on those brakes, it's immediately at work, but it's not kind of headbutt the dash level. Some cars do feel a bit OTT. I know some of the more modern Fords try and do that to give you a sense of how sporty they are, but it takes a little bit of adjustment. So I think going back to the engine, it is the point of difference. When you're looking at a used car in the, let's call it around £5,000 to £6,000 mark, it's what makes this car stand out to me over an Audi or over, well, the 3-litre Z4, that's got a lovely engine, I will say. But it's chalk and cheese to that MX-5. And I loved that car. I had so much fun in it, I really did. But I felt like it was lacking a bit of soul at the centre of the car. That engine is the soul, isn't it? And a 4-cylinder, 2-litre 4-cylinder doesn't really have much soul. But overall, that felt like a car you buy with your head. It was a precision tool, an amazing piece of Japanese engineering, and would last you 300,000 miles with just a bit of rust to think about. It's a car you don't have to put any thought into owning, and oh no, something broke. Let me see if it has a Ford part in common and I can replace it for 200 quid. Probably 300 including labour. They're a real piece of cake to work on. You can lift the bonnet, away you go. This is where there's a different proposition about owning a 986 Boxster. And ultimately, the thing that people just don't realise if they're coming into it from a younger age is you are buying a car with 911 running costs. It shares nearly all the same parts underneath when something of 25 years old eventually packs up and needs a bit of love. And so the running cost, I think, is what makes them so cheap. That, and I think they are the least favourite Porsche out there, which I think is a bit unfair. I really do. For a summer run around, this thing it's awesome, honestly. It's got heaps and heaps of character. It's got so much capability. I haven't pushed it anywhere near its limit, to be honest. It's got practicality, it's got comfort. "61 miles an hour, just like that, never gets old." As I say, it's a car which almost seems too good to be true. So these high running costs, trust me, if you're 24 and you're watching this and you're living at home with mum and dad, like I was when I was buying my bargain £5,000 German cars, just be so careful. Every time I fell in love with the car, a few times of fixing it and it eating all of my next holiday or my Christmas budget to fix the damn thing, it just made me fall out of love with it. Does that mean it's a flat out non-recommendation? No, because actually a lot of owners of these cars are actually in their 60s. They're in the retirement age. They're looking for something cheap and fun to just enjoy going away with their partner or enjoy going to the local Porsche meet at the weekends. And these are the people who have the money to fix it when it goes wrong. You're going to hear all sorts of stuff about IMS bearings, RMS, Borescoring. I'm going to send you to a link that JM has very usefully done in the last few days, actually, where he's gone to an amazing Porsche specialist and they kind of help explain all sorts of things about that and which model years are affected by what. The long story short is, like an old stereotype, there is an element of truth to it. But, like stereotypes, it's blown out of proportion and it's exaggerated and it's a bit echo chambery. So, I won't lie, it would be at the back of my mind. It just would, unless I've had a car sorted, but it shouldn't be as much. And there are lots of people who buy this and go, look, it's 25 years old, it's done 130,000 miles, it's probably going to go by now if it was going to go. If it was one of those percentage affected, it would have gone. But I'm not going to give you the definitive advice on it because that would be naive. I don't know enough. Look it up, but don't make it a reason not to buy. Would I buy one with my own money, having raved and ranted and everything else? Well, a friend of mine just picked one up for £3,000. Just like this, 2.5 litre, base spec. His are cloth seats with basically, it's lucky it has a steering wheel. And I just said to him, mate, for £3,000, there's nothing better than this. You can commute in this every day. And ultimately, if it packs up for any reason, you're only committed to a £3,000 car, and anybody buying a brand new Ford Fiesta on finance lost £3,000 when they moved it off the forecourt. In some ways, it's kind of a nice ownership proposition if you didn't spend too much on it in the first place. So there's a part of me that I think I would, near the bottom end. I really weirdly would. I'd try and find one as sorted as I could and feel a bit less wedded to it if something went horribly wrong. Would I spend £8,000 or £9,000 on this car? Probably not. I don't think I would. I think at that upper end, I could be getting into a 987 potentially, although with Borescoring issues there to be very wary of, which are a bit more serious. If something went wrong, then I've kind of got £8,000 or £9,000 invested in a car that I now have to fix to kind of get any of that money back out. There are people out there I know who are shopping for 15k for something fun that they only poodle around at the weekends anyway. And there's a part of me that wants to say to them, have you considered getting a semi-cheap Boxster? Have you just halve your budget, a third of your budget? Go back, get one of these, replace what needs replacing and have fun. This segment is about MX-5 comparisons. Do skip ahead if you need to. But basically, in my lifestyle, where I was 4 years ago when I bought my MX-5, do I wish I'd bought one of these instead? No, because I really did buy that with my maximum budget, and I bought that with the faith and the reassurance that I didn't really have to worry about it. The steering, honestly, even better, miles better. The gear change, in a class of its own. Such a lovely gearbox, one of the best I've ever experienced. There was the it felt more like a go-kart. It felt even more engaging to actually move and throw around on the road. I took it on track. I was driving along with the back end slightly sliding out, that 50-50 weight distribution. Absolutely amazing fun. And the running costs were incredible. It genuinely cost me less to run as a car than running a 1.8 litre Honda Civic from 2010. Exceptional. Having that metal roof allowed me to not worry about an old car. I didn't worry in winter. I didn't really worry about that at all. But there were downsides, and if you look at my channel and some old history on it, I did fall in and out of that, But there were downsides, and if you look on the channel, you'll see I did fall in and out of love with that car. And to be honest, people have moaned at me for saying, oh, a two-seater small car's not practical. It's you moron. I'm like, I know, I got in the car when I bought it. I'm aware of the dimensions. But the point is, when the perfect opportunity would come up to go for a drive, it would sometimes be limited that where we were going, it was a bit too small to go for that perfect holiday in it. We would go there, but it was just so crammed. We had bags in the footwell, and those times you're going, I do love how small this is, but we'd go out for a day shopping and we'd buy things and we'd have to be carrying them in the car to get them home because the boot was full. So it wasn't always perfect. There are many people the MX-5 is exactly the right car for, but I'm really understanding that if you can afford to run one of these, I think it does quite a few things better than the MX-5. I can't really crown a winner, there's too many differences for different people, but you get the idea. The owner, Ben, he's got a BMW i3, an electric car for commuting. He says it's far quicker than this. Who cares? It doesn't have the soul of this car. And he doesn't drive everywhere flat out, trying to see what it's like on the edge. He just loves cruising around, roof off, in the sun. When you get a nice little opportunity in a windy bend, this car is confidence inspiring. It doesn't make you think you're trying to make something on a golf platform struggle a little bit in the bends. So one of the things I haven't done yet is compare it to the 996, amazingly. There's just so much to say about this car. I think the simplest way to put it is you can feel all of the DNA in common. You really can. And I think if you had a beautifully sorted 3.2 one of these, in good condition, with a lovely exhaust on it, you've got enough there that's 911-esque to keep you happy. You've got the added practicality, you can get the roof off properly, and yeah, they're brilliant. The truth is though, when I walked away from that 996, for the following week, I just couldn't get it out of my head. It sunk its teeth into me. And I think it's something about having that engine right behind you. The Miltech back box on that in particular really helped it sing. The way having that weight over the rear of the car, the way it kind of behaves as you're going in and out of a bend and you're pressing, you're putting the power down again. There's something there that's made me understand that 911s do drive completely differently to anything else on the road. And this car is so accomplished, as I've just raved about in all those ways. But when I drove this a month ago, despite being so impressed and laughing on camera and having everything else, the reality was I didn't think about it that much when I left. I didn't go on Auto Trader and decide that I wanted to buy one. Now, there might be a few reasons for that. It might be that I was already reviewing a 5-litre Mustang straight after that, and then reviewing a DeLorean straight after that. I could have just been a bit distracted. But the 911, if you're wondering about the two, there's a certain sprinkle of magic in those that if I had more money, it's what I would get. I just would. But is one better than the other? Well, depends what your needs are, really. And is it better to buy a really doggy, cheap 996 or a really well-sorted Boxster? I'd get a really well-sorted Boxster, to be honest. Overall, a super impressive car. So the last thing before I sign out is to ask for your help. And that is, I'm trying to make this my full-time career now, and it's a really difficult thing to do, to be perfectly honest. You can very easily spend 20 working hours of your time making a video. It takes a long, long, long time to make anything out of these. So if you could join my Patreon page, and chuck me £1 a month here and there, amazing. If 1,000 people do that, it'd be huge. If you've got a car that I can review for the channel, let me know. Otherwise, a like and a subscribe. And right now, if you've enjoyed this and you enjoy my style of presenting and the way I put these things together, don't forget to check out my Z4 videos, MX-5, TT, F-Type, Stinger, everything else. Anything that's of relevance, I've got lots of stuff to enjoy. So have a look around. Anyway, thank you very much and have a good one.